I just want to give a special recognition to Ben Tracy and Renee Sebeny, who are, really leading the home care work, the home care blitz, and then in Southern California, Suzanne Jimenez, who, along with Triana Silton, really turned our operation around on a dime down there. And so just, fantastic work, everybody, and we'll have lots of time to, first we got a lot more to do, and then we'll have a lot of time to talk about it in the future. But obviously the subject that is, foremost on the agenda for today is, where we're at with the Hospital Association. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to give the most concise description I can of the key provisions of the agreement that we have now reached with the Hospital Association. We did a call last night with members of the executive committee, and we weren't quite done at that point in time. And then tonight at 8 o'clock, we're doing a call with members of our executive board. And before we get off this call, we'll have Steve Trossman and Nathan, give a description about, what's been sent out to members, just so all of the staff knows what's now out in the field. And, if you have conversations with people, you won't be caught off guard, or you'll have a full understanding of what's happening. But let me begin with just a minute or so of context, because, today is May 6th, 2014, and really we began the conversations that led to today's agreement, honestly in February of 2012. It was just a little over 2 years ago that we began to engage the leadership of the California hospital industry in a conversation about the future, how we saw the future of hospital work, how we see the future of healthcare, what we saw as the future for UHW, and what we wanted to see as the future for hospitals and our relationship with them. And, I think everybody is aware that we made a very simple, very basic agreement in May of 2012 with the hospital industry that really could appropriately be described as a gentleman's agreement. It did not have an enforcement mechanism. It was a basic commitment that we're going to continue to talk. We're going to talk about the future of healthcare. We're also going to talk about the future of our union and how we try to organize non-union workers. And I think also, as people know, it's safe to say that under that agreement, that UHW did every single thing it committed to. We owned every obligation that we made, and we also know that the hospital industry did not meet all of the obligations and responsibilities that they had. And so one of the issues that we've all been talking about for a number of months now is what's going to be different this time as compared to then. But I think it's worth remembering that this is a conversation that's really gone on for about 27 months. And so we went from having no relationship with the industry beyond what we had with individual employers to the point that we're at today. And I think it's important that people, stop to reflect on that for a little bit and hopefully try to connect it to, how we talk about our approach to the world, how we talk about the future for working people and for our union. Because it's in my view, it's an awful long way to come in 27 months. Before I get into the specifics of this agreement, I want to make one general observation, which is, to the best of my knowledge, the agreement that we've now reached with this industry represents the largest scale strategic collaboration between a major industry and a major union, certainly in the state of California, that has ever taken place. you know, and it's probably not literally right to say in the country, but I certainly can't think of another situation where a major industry and a major union set out to do what we've decided to do today. And I mention that because, you know, we talk frequently about our ability as leaders and how we create leaders and how we build leadership. You know, that because of the work we all do together, we're now at a place where we have an opportunity to shape the future of healthcare with an industry that does $125 billion a year in revenue, that employs over 500,000 people, and that serves more than 30 million people in the state of California. This is a big undertaking, and you know, I think people should feel, you know, both connected to, but have a sense of the magnitude of what we've done. So there's 3 or 4 basic pieces to this agreement. The first one, which is now in effect, is that institutions representing over 30,000 non-union hospital workers in the state of California have now signed a code of conduct between themselves and UHW. The code of conduct requires that in all of our interactions, whether they're in the public realm, in the realm of advocacy, in the realm of, you know, media relations or press relations or political work, as well as in the realm of non-union workers, you know, deciding whether or not to join our union, we now have an agreement with institutions covering more than 30,000 non-union workers that we will eliminate and prohibit all negative campaigning. We will prohibit the use of anti-union consultants by employers. We will prohibit the ability of employers to support, sponsor, work through employee vote no committees. We will eliminate the ability that hospitals have to campaign negatively about the question of whether or not to join our union by campaigning about strikes, dues, assessments, constitutions, bylaws, all of the standard things that we say. Reciprocally, we are saying that we are not going to campaign to get people to join the union by attacking the integrity of the leadership of these institutions. We're not going to trash people. We're not going to tear people down. And by the way, they're going to do all those same things for us. They are going to commit not to do those. And basically what we're saying is we're going to take all of the negative conflict, nastiness, lowest common denominatorism out of the interactions between us and these institutions, and that status quo will be in place until December 31st of 2017. It's a 3.5-year agreement under the terms that we've agreed to. So, you know, there's some other things on the edges about how we're going to deal with one another, but basically what we are saying with this industry is that healthcare is undergoing a profound change as an industry. The Affordable Care Act is going to transform the way that care is delivered in California and across the country, and we are going to talk to workers, and we're both going to hold ourselves to the standard of talking to them in positive, constructive, fact-based, honest ways about what the future of healthcare holds and what the role is for ourselves and these employers. All of these commitments go well beyond what is required under the law, and you know, this literally involves dozens of institutions up and down the state of California. Secondly, and in some ways the thing that's likely to, you know, over time draw the most public attention, is we are making the centerpiece of this agreement a common mission to reform the Medi-Cal system in the state of California. And as everybody knows, you know, in California, Medi-Cal is a terrible payer for health care services. It's a terrible payer for hospitals. It's a terrible payer for clinics. It's a terrible payer for doctors. It's a terrible payer for medical groups. It's a terrible payer for home care workers. And it's a terrible payer for clinics and other kinds of settings. If you work in a system that does a lot of Medi-Cal in the hospital industry, so if you work for Dignity, if you work for Daughters of Charity, if you work at some other facilities, if you work at safety net hospitals or community hospitals that typically see a lot more Medi-Cal patients, your institution is under far greater economic pressure and financial pressure than the industry as a whole, because for every Medi-Cal patient that comes through and who we treat, your institution is losing 40 cents on every dollar of care that is provided because Medi-Cal pays so badly. And so when we talk about, the job of the union is to raise the standard of living of union members, we cannot raise members' standard of living unless we solve this Medi-Cal problem. It is more pronounced at places like Dignity and Daughters of Charity, but it affects the whole industry. And frankly, when we think about that 40 or 45-year-old member and how do we get them to retirement age with everything we're expecting, if we don't fix Medi-Cal, we can't do it. So we have made Medi-Cal the centerpiece of this. Currently today, Medi-Cal underpays hospitals by $6 billion a year. And we have committed to the hospital industry that we intend to fix this $6 billion shortfall by November of 2016. And I think I want people to also appreciate that if we fix Medi-Cal for hospitals, we are going to be talking about Medi-Cal broadly, and we should, also make sure that it's not just hospitals and hospital workers, but we're looking at IHSS, we're looking at long-term care, we're looking at other pieces of the care continuum. But we have pledged we're going to do this by November of 2016. In order to do it, we have further agreed that we are going to create an unprecedented $100 million campaign fund to tackle this $6 billion hole in the safety net in the Medi-Cal program. The first contribution to the fund will be made by the end of this year and will be a total of $50 million. $40 million of those dollars will be committed by the California hospital industry. $10 million of those dollars will be contributed by us. So they will put in 80% of the money, we will put in 20% of the money. The second contribution will come due in mid-2016. Again, $50 million. $40 million from the hospitals, $10 million from us. So over the next 2 years, we now have a commitment that the California hospital industry is going to put up $80 million to fix this problem that's fundamental to the standard of living of our members. We're going to put up $20 million. And if we are successful in solving the Medi-Cal program's shortfall by November of 2016, we will then have an agreement with the industry whereby we will get physical access to another set of institutions employing at least 30,000 non-union workers, and we will have access for no less than 6 months. We'll be able to be in break rooms, conference rooms, all that kind of stuff, and we'll have the code of conduct. So the first group is a code of conduct for 30,000 plus people. That will run for the duration of the agreement. The second part is the $100 million fund, 80% hospital money, 20% our money. And the third part is another group that we would have organizing rights for premised on success in fixing the political problem. I also want people to know that the group of institutions that will have to grant us access if we are successful in our political endeavors must be identified and negotiated with the union by January 1st of 2016, so essentially 18 or 19 months from now. If it is not negotiated with us down to specifics in terms that we are comfortable with, we can walk away from the agreement, and then we have the right to go to the ballot in November of 2016 with whatever we want to put on it. So we have made a decision, obviously, in order to reach an agreement that we are not going to pursue our ballot initiatives, but we are dealing with two sets of organizing rights, $30,000 up front, $30,000 after November 2016, and all of the political advocacy work in the interim. But the second group has to be negotiated by January 1 of 2016, and we also have to come to a mutual agreement. So I really should say it is possible that the number could be higher than 30,000, and we also have to negotiate the definition of what is political success. So people have asked, again, back to this question about what's different from this agreement than last time, why should we trust them this time as opposed to last time? And I think I give a pretty standard answer. Number one is we shouldn't trust anybody. But here's what we've done. What's different about this agreement is the first agreement we reached only with the California Hospital Association. This agreement we have reached between ourselves, the California Hospital Association, and dozens of individual institutions and health systems. So that's a significant difference. Is this time we've got hospitals and health systems signing on the dotted line. Second thing is this agreement with the CHA and all those different health systems represents well over a majority of the entire hospital industry in the state of California, and we think it is very likely there's still some stragglers out there that when everything comes in that we will have signed agreements with hospitals representing over 70% of the hospital industry in the state of California. The third thing that is different is obviously they have made a commitment to put up $80 million to solve the biggest financial problem that is facing this industry, that is facing IHSS, that's facing long-term care, which is the dramatically underfunded level of Medi-Cal for the people who get it. By the way, everyone should know that Medi-Cal now serves 7 million Californians, and all those people we signed up on health coverage expansion, 2 million new people in California have coverage through Medi-Cal, and so the number $6 billion a year shortfall is very likely to grow, not to shrink. So again, it just adds more urgency to getting this problem done. We also all know that people with Medi-Cal often can't get doctors to see them because Medi-Cal doesn't pay well enough, so these people were signing up. If we fix Medi-Cal, it's more likely that they're able to get the care they need. The institutions that do lots of Medi-Cal are the safety net and, in all likelihood, the most struggling of the institutions we deal with. And the last thing that I want everybody to understand is because Medi-Cal pays so poorly in California, that those of us that have employer-based insurance, like we have, typically pay about 25% more in healthcare premiums to make up for the underfunding of Medi-Cal, and that's known inside the industry as the cost shift. That Medi-Cal costs get picked up by people with employer-based insurance. We all pay more because the state of California and the federal government aren't doing their share. Last thing I would say that's different about this agreement from the last one is that this agreement is enforceable and has an explicit enforcement mechanism whereby an arbitrator who will be mutually appointed by us and the CHA has the right to oversee the agreement, to resolve disputes, to order sanctions, to get people to do what they're supposed to do under the agreement, and ultimately we would have the right to go to court to enforce the agreement, including the financial contributions that have been described. So when you take all of that together, a couple of final thoughts, and then I want to open it up for questions and comment and discussion. The fact that the hospital industry has committed $80 million to fix the Medi-Cal program, I believed that they were ready to spend $100 million to fight us. I think this is the proof, if you needed it, that they were ready to spend $100 million. And the idea that we will now devote $100 million $100 million in resources to fixing this huge problem as opposed to having a very intense and, okay, operator, we're getting a lot of static. Hopefully it'll...
I hear it, and we're not sure where it's coming from. 1 second.
Okay. I'll try to continue while you check that. So the idea that we're going to spend $100 million to fix a problem as opposed to $100 million to try to, clobber each other seems to be a much more positive way to go. The last thing I would say, again, just to emphasize, is our job is to raise the standard of living of our members. We've talked often about how workers have more political power than economic power. We invested $5 million to qualify these two ballot initiatives, and we just reached an agreement where for a $5 million investment, we're now going to get an $80 million return to pursue these things. So I'm going to stop there. I understand there's static. We'll try to figure out what the source of it is. But Operator Alice, if you could now just tell people how they can get in line for questions and comments and discussion.
Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, please press star, then 1 on your touch-tone phone. You will hear a tone indicating that you've been placed in the queue. To remove yourself from the queue, you may press the pound key at any time. If you are using a speakerphone, please pick up the handset before you press the numbers. Once again, if you have a question or a comment, please press star, then 1. And our first question comes from the line of Maggie Messias. Please go ahead. Oh, and Maggie, I'm sorry, Maggie has dropped off. Okay, once again, please press star then 1 if you have a question or a comment. And we have a question. Oh, just a moment. Once again, press star, then 1. There we go. We have a question from the line of Lorena Alvarez. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dave. So I'll be the brave one to ask the first question.
Sure.
So my question is, and I might have missed it because I got on a little bit late, but how does this change the relationship with us and current employers that are already with SEIU members in contract negotiations? Because I've been hearing on that.
So, I actually think that it strengthens our ability both with our existing employers to negotiate good contracts, and I think it strengthens our position with non-union folks. And here's why I say that, Lorena, is one of the things that was very interesting about these discussions with these guys is, how fearful they are about the expansion of Medi-Cal, what it means in terms of deteriorating finances inside these institutions, and our willingness to join with them and in a relatively short period of time say we are going to attack this problem of billions of dollars in underfunding. I think that the combination of that goal, the fact they're putting a lot of money where we have 50-50 decision-making over the $100 million, even though they're putting in most of the money, we each have to agree how to spend it equally. And so take a system like Dignity. Dignity will tell you right away that if we could fix the Medi-Cal problem, it would make a total change in the way in the finances of that system. And so I think as a practical matter, because that's true for so many different systems, if we're out there really doing the work to build the coalition, to do the politics, to figure out how to properly fund this industry, I don't think you see the same kinds of aggressive proposals from existing employers. So we're going to find out if that's true, but my sense is that many people will say, look, these guys are working with us. We're working on something that benefits everybody. We can only succeed if we work together, so I need to behave myself. Now, I should also say that there are some of our current employers who refuse to be part of this. And I would name 3 in particular who are on the, kind of the short list of the bad actors. Number 1 is Cedars-Sinai, number 2 is Prime Healthcare, and number 3 is Providence. Each of those 3 systems refuses to be part of this agreement for advocacy purposes, for code of conduct purposes, for any purpose whatsoever. And the first thing I think we got to recognize is that they now are in a clear minority of the industry. They are now outliers, and under this agreement, we continue to have the right to deal with them in any way that we want while we try to forge this other path with everyone else. And then the last thing I should say quickly is we've also agreed with the hospital that we are going to jointly sponsor a solution for the issues that were contained in the ballot measures, the fair pricing and the executive compensation. We intend to do something around transparency for executive comp, and we intend to do something around how can we reduce cost on the pricing side. And we've seen a piece of legislation that they would like to move, and so far it looks like it's a good vehicle, and we're going to pursue that as well. So I know that's a long answer, but those are some of the thoughts around that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next question comes from the line of Jennifer Kelly. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dave. Actually, my question may have been partially answered by the last answer, but I was thinking more along the lines of we've had a lot of agreements like this before, and then struggled to get the contract after the quick organizing. And again, you had addressed some of this, but that was the question that I had.
Yeah, no, listen, all those are fair questions, Jen, and I think, again, what's different here that never existed in any of those past situations is there is a big prize on the horizon called reforming Medi-Cal that's worth $6 billion. And this agreement is constructed in such a way that the more we work together, the more we don't try to shirk our responsibilities and obligations to one another, then the more likely we are to get the $6 billion. And also, they're putting $80 million of their funds at our disposal. And so I think those two things, those are new elements in this agreement. That's something that did not exist previously. And, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, there won't be glitches, any of that, but I think that gives us a lot of leverage, a lot of ability to try to, manage all of those problems that we're going to have to deal with anyway. But this time we've got something beyond the contract that's incredibly valuable to them to want to have. So that's how I would address it.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Lily Valley. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to say this is so exciting. I feel like this is the thing we've been waiting for. This is the thing we've been talking about since the trusteeship. And now it's our job to figure out how to be creative and strategic and create campaigns that make the best out of it. And I'm relieved that we are not going forward with the ballot initiative. And I'm really excited about what this means, not just for our union and our members, but frankly, for the disintegrating labor movement. I'm one of those people who doesn't want to sit around and, wait for the thing to come apart. So I think this is exactly what we've been waiting for, and I'm so glad it happened.
Yeah, and, Lily, I know you've been checking in regularly. The thing I would say, too, is, we've obviously got to finish this home care blitz, the signature gathering, but I think very quickly, once we all get that done and the dust settles, that we're going to have to come together with the organizing team and with Cass and with you and, everybody, and we're going to have to be thoughtful and smart about how we begin to implement this agreement. And, there's a bunch of commitments in it, but there's also a bunch of things that will depend on relationships where we have to start relying on a lot more people to carry the burden of, communicating with leaders of institutions, at the management level. But it's just an enormous opportunity. And this is a document, like most contracts or most agreements, it's not just what's in it, it's also what you make of it. And I think this is, there is a ton of stuff here that gives us opportunities to, think differently, to do things different. And so I am hopeful, that really by no later than June 15th, that, we've got organizers around the state who are now, beginning to approach people at the institutions where we have this code of conduct, both to talk to workers, but also to test how this thing works to make sure we turn it into the best thing we can. So we're not going to sit still, right? Now the fun starts.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Magdalena Messias. Please go ahead.
I think you answered my question. I just wanted to know how this agreement would affect the negotiations in primes, but you answered that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Maggie, and and just to be a little more specific, I think again, once the dust settles, let's give it a week or two. But I think we got to sit down with the leadership, not just of CHA, but all of the major providers, and say, now what are we going to do about Cedars, Prime, and Providence? Because you got two choices. We're going to continue to be public and to beat them up and to raise all the stuff that drives you crazy, or you're going to figure out how to get these guys to heal. And, so I think we also now have to enlist our partners, right, who are now partners at a different level, and saying there's just some behavior that, that you guys are now going to interfere with our ability to fix Medi-Cal. And so, Prem Ready, how are we going to deal with you? Cedars-Sinai, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we got to have a separate plan for those places. I think we should be intentional, and I think we should be direct with the leadership of the industry.
We have another question from the line of Ben Delgado. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is, again, just a comment. I think like Billy, I'm just really excited. And I think, for me, a lot of this work is about how do we help really make sure that the folks that don't have, I think folks that have, talked about, why I do the work with home care, it is really to figure out how we help folks. And this Medi-Cal reimbursement is absolutely about $6 billion. It's about getting money into the industries, but it will directly mean that people get access to better, care. Right now, folks, can't go into certain hospitals because the rates are so low. So this is also about what that means for our community. And I just want to say I'm very proud to work in an organization that is really about change and taking courageous steps, because we could continue just on the path that other, locals have done and, kind of fight the battles that we know how to fight and we know how to win. But that wasn't going to take us to scale, and that's what we've been talking about. And so this, to me, just feels so very real, that this is an opportunity, this is a moment. And so, like I said, I think for me what's really exciting is, we get to play big time in terms of bringing billions of dollars, so not in the millions, but in the billions amounts, and ultimately impacting folks that have Medi-Cal. It's just incredibly, amazing. And again, so I just feel really proud, really excited by the opportunities, and just really proud to be working with leadership that truly is courageous. I was talking earlier, and this will be the last thing I say, is that I think we've been improving through our campaigns. I mean, my sense from even the campaign that we're in right now and the home care blitz, it's just so different because we've learned and we've grown and we are willing to do that. And so, again, it just speaks to our courage and our willing to change and adapt to just do bigger and better. So just a comment.
That's great. Thank you, Ben.
Another question from the line of Satura Romas. Go ahead, please. Satura Romas, your line is open. If you've muted your line, ma'am, or party, I do not hear you. I'm going to go ahead and release her and take the next question. That's from the line of Lois Jacobus. Go ahead, please, ma'am.
Hi, yes. I just wanted to know if CNA is also going to be in this agreement with us, or are they just on the side?
They are on the side in the back, sucking hind wind, Lois. They are not part of this and will not be part of this.
Sweet, sweet. Does INLO, the independent hospitals, are they also in the agreement?
You know, some of them are, and I got to admit, I don't yet have it committed to memory, and we'll be following up on all of that. We've gotten all sorts of signed documents in here today, and I just don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. Great job.
Once again, if you wish to ask a question, you may do star then one. We do have Sortor Aromas back on the line.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry, my phone was on mute. That's why I kept talking. Nobody
That's no problem. You're online now.
Yeah, my first question was already actually asked by Jennifer Kelly. But then I have a second question. If I can go to the second question, is there a particular reason why in organizing rights we're focusing only on the 30,000? If I believe you've mentioned, Dave, that there's that the industry has like 500,000 workers, excuse me, employees.
Right. So there's over 500,000 employees. Over 200,000 of them are already organized. This agreement provides for us to engage if we, take advantage of all the parts, between 60 and 70,000 workers. So, we're getting a really big chunk of what is left, and candidly, we did not focus on all the rural hospitals, across the state. We tried to focus on hospitals that are in more populated areas and a little, more on the beaten path. So, it's not everything, but it is a very large chunk of what is left. And I think everyone, has a sense that they did not do this willingly or easily. This took a lot of struggling and a lot of work. So that's what it is.
Thank you.
I have another question from Ariana Jimenez. Go ahead, please, ma'am.
More of a comment, really, Dave. I just wanted to say I think this is really incredible. It's been a long time since the organization has had a path to organize 30 to 60,000 workers. I think, this really makes real the promise of using politics toward growth. And just to say that I've had the pleasure of reporting this out to our allies who are with us and endorsing this initiative this morning, and lots of really positive response from our labor allies in the private sector who want to sit down and talk about this right away and understand the lessons we've learned, and get to thinking about how this could be applicable to grow the rest of the labor movement. So very encouraging and exciting news.
Great. Thank you, Ariana. And I don't know if we have Dave Kiefer. What Ariana just mentioned is the way that we are going to, we've always talked about and we've attempted to begin, using politics to, to create organizing opportunities. And if Dave is in the, he represents us in Sacramento, and if we have him, it'd be helpful to hear. I don't know, Al, if we have him in the speaker queue or if he can be identified in the queue.
Stand by, sir. We'll be glad to check. I do have a line from Eric Kufis. Eric,
hey, Dave. Yes. So, Dave, when you mention about Prime, Sears, and Providence not being a part, not being willing participants, so does that still leave the floodgates open? So if we decided to put a ballot initiative as far as CEO pay, that it would be fair game to be able to move forward from that standpoint?
So it's totally fair game to go after any of them. What we have committed, Eric, is we're not going to go after them in a way that captures everybody else who did, but there's plenty of ways around this. We have plenty of things we can do. And I think what we're going to start by is just making the point that these guys are now, they're just not good citizens. They're bad apples. They're off the, they're out of the mainstream. They're outliers. And I think, again, we have to have a specific strategy for them. But we have made a commitment, and I think people will understand once people say, look, we're ready to put up $80 million to fix a problem that we all share, they do want to know you're not going to come right back after them, and we have made that commitment.
And Mr. Regan, what was the other gentleman's name you wished? Dave, what's the first name?
Well, it was Dave Kiefer. Last name was Kiefer, first name was Dave.
Thank you,
Do we
sir.
have him?
I'm still looking, sir. 1 second.
Okay. Well, we can go on to the next one.
I have no additional questions at this point, sir, unless somebody wishes to do *1 again.
Okay. So while we're doing that, a couple of other things I think we should do. I think it would be helpful if Steve could give us a rundown of the materials, and Nathan, whatever's out there in the atmosphere, and maybe a preliminary assessment of what we're hearing from the press. And then also with me here in the Oakland office is Bruce Harland, our general counsel, and if Bruce wants to add anything, certainly welcome to, but I want everyone to know this guy was a monster in these discussions, and he had the unenviable task of working with lawyers who were not nearly as talented as he is, and we want to just give total props to Bruce for doing an incredible job. So, Bruce, if you want to, you're just a country boy from Merced, but if there's anything you'd like to say to the group.
No, I don't. Monsters are dangerous to mess with, so CHA lawyers found that out. It's very exciting.
All right, Steve and Nathan, what do we got out
So
there?
just real quick, so we did do a media telephone press conference today. It was well attended. We had about over 30 media outlets were on there, including the LA Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Associated Press, and some of the bigger media outlets. It went very well. The initial stories are coming out, and as usual, they range. But mostly have been positive. There's a bit of a focus on us dropping the ballot initiatives, but in all of the stories, it lays out the $100 million fund and the new relationship. And I think for us in particular, they've been very good. Then I think Nathan's going to kind of walk through what the internal communications plan. Oh, I'll say one other thing. We are sending letters to all the congressional delegation, the legislature, the governor, and the other statewide officers. We are also going to be communicating with our allies, the ones who supported us in the ballot initiatives. All that work is happening as we speak. Then Nathan will walk through the materials that we have and for both members and some materials that we have for you. So,
all right. Good afternoon. So, briefly, if you follow us on Twitter and have liked our Facebook page, you would have seen we already put the announcement out. At the same time, we did the teleconference with media at 11:30. We have held back. We have not sent an email yet to members. We're waiting for this call to happen first, so you didn't all start getting calls from people wondering what's going on. So the plan basically is this. Finishing up this call, those who have already been spoken to in the hospital division, there's a plan for some number of you to do shift change, or I say shift change, but basically the leaflets into members' hands at designated hospitals. Kaiser, my understanding is contract specialists are going to be distributing leaflets. So this leaflet has already been produced in Blitz locations or in offices, and now the runners will be moving them to Blitz locations in the north. In the south, my understanding they're out on tables, that the copy shop has already produced. So in addition to that, we have put together sort of a set of a Q&A for staff that we'll be distributing shortly as well, just with some harder questions perhaps that you may be getting from people over the next couple of days, possibly they reach out to you. Following this, email communication to all members, as well as, again, everyone on this call will be sending you the leaflets. There is, again, it's both in English and Spanish, primarily for hospital workers, so Kaiser and hospital division. Is really the point right now, and they'll be rolling out more over the next few days. So I think that's it. Yeah, I think I mentioned the Q&A. So you'll be getting a Q&A from me and the leaflet in English and Spanish. That you do not need to produce it if you've already been in touch with Greg Barron from the hospital division. The leaflet should be showing up at your Blitz location if you're in the north, and the south will be in LA. Again, for Kaiser, I believe Shockley's working with coordinators to figure this out with CSs.
And if you want to see our press materials, they're up on the website.
Well, you also received them from Dave.
Oh, okay.
And I also just want to remind people that we are doing a call with all of the members of the executive board at 8 p.m. tonight to have a conversation very much like this one. I just want to ask all of you that have executive board members that you work with to please, try to remind them or let them know this is happening and this is the best time to, get an update so that they feel like they're on top of this. So Alice, I'd ask if we have anyone else, we can take one or two more, and if not, then I think...
I have a call from Mr. Douglas Jones. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
This is really, really good news. And I want to say that one of the things, obviously, this is an important service to our members and to grow our power within the hospital industry, but it's also pretty crucial in terms of the successful implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Because if Medi-Cal reimbursement rates remain low, then it would be the fact that we delivered health insurance to a bunch of people, not just our members, but the general public, would have less meaning because it'd still have access problems. One question I have is that I do understand that California Hospital Association had been moving petitions to put a ballot measure of their own on the ballot regarding Medi-Cal reimbursement rates. I'm not sure if that is affected by this agreement.
So it is not affected by this. What the measure they're actually moving is to keep the governor out of what's called the quality assurance fee. And 2 years ago, the governor reneged on a commitment that he made to the hospital industry, broke his word, and then took $400 million out of a fund that the hospital industry had created. And frankly, that still is sticking in the craw of a lot of the hospitals. So they are moving a measure that would wall off the quality assurance fee from the governor. I think they're still planning to go ahead with that, but this agreement has no effect one way or another on that.
I have another call from Kurt Scott. Go ahead, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, are you there? Have you unmuted your line possibly?
I apologize. I was on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Just wanted to say this is great news. And my question is also concerning Medi-Cal and how we're going to fix it. Sounds like a really big job, and I'm wondering how we get started and how we balance that piece of work with all of the work in support of organizing that we're going to be doing toward that goal of bringing 30,000 more workers into the fold.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm confident we'll figure out how to balance it. But on the question of where do we start, well, we start with having the best research operation in any local union that I know of, that you play a somewhat significant role in, Kurt. And I anxiously await your thoughts and Joan's thoughts and Ray's thoughts and everyone's thoughts, Fidel and Laura, and Mr. Sam is going to come up with a whole bunch of excellent ideas that you're going to share with us that we will then take to the hospital industry about how here's where we're going to get the funding. Listen, I know it's a ton of work. I'm obviously being a little, tongue-in-cheekish, but it's, what I know about this group is that once we set our mind to something, we will figure it out. I am confident we can figure this out. California has a $2 trillion economy, and we got to find $6 billion. I think we can do that. So, Alice, any others?
That is the last question I had at this point, sir.
Okay, so listen, I just want to thank everybody. You know, we really have an incredible team here, an incredible group of staff. I just want to say, fantastic work again around the home care blitz and the signature collections. So keep it up. We will be talking soon. This is really a great day in the union. These don't come around very often, so I want everyone to enjoy it and get out there, and let's continue to keep the momentum going. So thank you very much, and Alice, I think we're done now.
That does conclude our conference for today. Thank you for your participation and for using AT&T teleconferencing. You may now disconnect.